Hello friends and welcome back to Kurt Berglund's Baseball World. I need to apologize. I know my voice does not sound normal. I'm fighting a bug. But I wanted to take a few minutes and bring you some numbers to expand our report on the 1983 Milwaukee Brewer replay that I am doing with vintage Status Pro Baseball. Remember, I'm using the dice-only version of Status Pro, which I really like. Some games I like the fast action cards, like Fall Classic. Other games I like the dice, like Status Pro. Before we get into that, don't forget to check out being a member on my channel. I'm putting the link in the description for this video, and you can see all the benefits that you can get from joining my channel as a member. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming on in the weeks and months to come that I'll be expanding on the members side of the channel, and you can check out whether or not it's a good fit for you. That's in the description for this video. Alright, in my report today, I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you some individual Brewer pitching stats through 29 games, which is as far as I've gotten. And then I'm going to show you a couple of important aggregate numbers. We know that when I looked at the hitting stats in my last report to you about 2 weeks ago now, that there were a lot of runs being scored, both by the Milwaukee Brewers and by their opponents. Well, what's happened in the last 10 games? We're going to look at the pitching and see how things look at this point after 29 total games have been played on the schedule. And I want to make a point as a result of this, sort of a cautionary tale to you, and we will get to that in just a few minutes. But let's start by looking at the individual statistics for the replay for the individual Brewer pitchers to this point. All right, so here's a look at the individual statistics for my replay for the pitching side to this point. Don Sutton with a 2.14 ERA is my best starting pitcher. He has started 6 times. He has pitched 50 2/3 innings. He has allowed 43 hits, only 5 walks, struck out 26, and he is an amazing 6-0 right now. The other starters, not nearly as good. Mike Caldwell has an ERA of 5.05. He is 1-3. Jerry Augustine only has a handful of starts. He developed some arm trouble, but he has an ERA of 7.31 in 3 games. He did win a game. He's lost a game. Bob McClure has probably been the worst starting or most disappointing starting pitcher. 6.69 ERA. 40 innings, he is 0-4. Moose Haas has been the second best starter, 3.18 ERA, 5 starts, 39 innings, and a 3-1 record. These 5 men, along with Chuck Porter, make up the starting pitchers to this point in the season. Chuck Porter's numbers are not on here. He is the one pitcher whose numbers are not on the card. Bob Gibson, not that Bob Gibson, as you can see from the 6.98 ERA, is one of the long men in the bullpen. Jim Slayton's been the best reliever, 0.49 ERA with an 0-1 record and 2 saves. Jamie Easterly is the loogie with an 8.70 ERA. He hasn't been very effective. 5 games, only 3 innings. Pete Ladd, 3.69 ERA. He's sort of took over the closer, or the short man duties, I should say, for Raleigh Fingers, because Fingers, as you know, blew out his elbow in September of 82 and missed the entire 83 season. Ladd has a 1-0 record with 5 saves, and Tom Tellman, sort of a setup man and a middle man, 9 games, 15 innings, 2-1 record. He has a 176 earned run average. So this, after 29 games, this is where we stand with most of the pitching staff, again, minus Chuck Porter, who I couldn't fit on the card. So these are the aggregate stats. Now, let's take a look at a couple of numbers for the entire team at this point. One of the ways to test the realism of a sim, especially if you're using as-played lineups, is that you should be close on wins and losses. Now, that's not to say you're going to be right on all the time. But if a sim is good at what it says it's doing, you shouldn't be too far off with your wins and losses if your lineups, and particularly your pitching, is as played. Now, through 29 games in the actual season, the 1983 Milwaukee Brewers were 16-13. In my replay, they're 17-12. The real-life Milwaukee Brewers had kind of a crazy season. They were leading in August in the American League Eastern Division, and they kind of fell apart down the stretch. There's a major trade coming up for the Brewers in May where they're going to deal Gorman Thomas and Jamie Easterly to the Cleveland Indians for Rick Manning and Rick Waits. That's going to change certainly their run production a little bit. It's going to change their defense, but you can see that even at this point, about a month into the season, we're doing okay on wins and losses. But we said at the 19 game mark 2 weeks ago that there were a lot of runs being scored. What's happened in the last 10 games? Well, let's take a look. The team earned run average for the season in real life was 4.02 for the 1983 Milwaukee Brewers. 29 games into the season, the replay earned run average of this club is, of my replay club, the same team, 1983 Milwaukee Brewers, is 4.03. So we were one game off in the one-loss side, and we're 1/100th of a run off on the ERA side based on the entire season stats. So we're certainly looking like we're on pace. And that's the point that I want to make today. It would be easy after 19 games to say, oh boy, Status Pro, at least with the Dice Vintage Status Pro, with the Dice version, gee, that runs hot. Look at all those runs being scored. But that's my message for today. We still don't know much about how this replay is going to go. 29 games does not an entire season make. And I'm certainly not here telling you, oh boy, Status Pro is right on with the numbers for my replay. We don't know that. 29 games is way too early to draw conclusions. But so was 19 games. And so what I'm trying to say to you is that over time, if the sim is worth the paper that it's printed on, your numbers should come into line. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you have an outlier, but sometimes you have a bad sim. And so my message to you is that when you're looking at your data, it's so important to have patience and see what happens. These numbers could still go wonky. There's, 120 plus games left in the season. And there's going to be ups and downs. But as hot as things were running the first 19 games, they've certainly cooled off in the last 10. And that's what can happen. So if you're enjoying, there's two ways that I rate a sim. There's two standards I'm looking for. One is, am I being entertained? Does the game flow? Is this fun? The second one is, am I learning anything? Is it teaching me anything about the players, the team, the manager, the league? Am I learning? Well, I am learning about the 1983 Brewers, things that I certainly didn't realize when I was watching them as a 17 and 18-year-old guy. But I will also say that the vintage Status Pro game that I'm using for the sim is fun. I'm having a good time. And the numbers are coming into line. The single most important criteria that I use to say, is the sim doing a good job, is runs. The other stuff can get wonky. You could have small sample sizes, you could have weird dice, whatever, you could have a streak of some kind, and you can certainly have even a whole season of outliers. But your total runs should be in, if you'll pardon the pun, in the ballpark. And so far, these are. So, with that said, I hope this has been instructive, informative, and maybe a cautionary tale for you guys. If your numbers are crazy now, have patience. See how things come into line. You can't decide if a sim is good in a weekend, and you can't even decide in 29 games. It's a story, and it takes time to unfold. I hope you have a good day. Thanks for being with me. Don't forget to check out channel membership in the link in the description for this video. Thank you again. Have a great day. So long, everybody.